You start generations and generations of people going to college, you know, becoming the doctors, whatever it is you want to do, you start generations of that.
Well, Dorian's great, and like she teaches us more than like just like inside school things, like how to make friends. Like she also teaches us about like economic problems and like things that's going around in the world.
I learned self-confidence, time management, and how to react in certain situations.
They're basically like big sisters who like help you and like teach you and like lead you and guide you.
It's honestly a good experience because you get to see those that you're mentoring grow into becoming a leader just like you.
You saw the video, and here she is, the leader right here. Dorian Murray Thomas, founder, She Wins Incorporated, a terrific organization. We met you at the Russell Berrie Awards for Making a Difference. You were recognized with your colleagues. Tell folks what She Wins is all about.
So thank you, Steve. She Wins is a leadership and social action organization for middle and high school girls based in my hometown of Newark, particularly those affected by violence. Always, always. You got to represent the brick city.
Brick city. But you know it well, and you know it in a way that, unfortunately, you'd rather never have known it this way. When you talk about violence and young girls affected by violence, this isn't some philosophical or theoretical thing for you. It's real.
So when I was 7 years old, my father was gunned down just 2 blocks from my house on his way to go pay my school tuition, of all things. And so our lives really kind of changed drastically. And at 7, when the man who's tucking you in at night, taking you to school, you find out that one day he's just gone, there's really no sort of normal way to react. And so at that age, I went from being, the perfect kid in school, always, at 7, you don't really get A's and B's, right? You get the checks and check pluses. Right. When we get all the checks and check pluses to ending up at the principal's office every day and really kind of struggling with that trauma. So it wasn't until years later where I really got to kind of think back to, 1, what was going through my 7-year-old head? And then 2, what made the difference, so that even though I struggled a little bit academically and behaviorally right after my father's death, I still was able to come back, right? What charged that recovery in a healthy way? And so there were 2 things. 1, it was having a safe space. Regardless of what happened, my mother was always there. And, she was a teacher and a social worker, so she poured into me and invested in me and made me feel safe, right? And then the second thing was really being able to feel that in the midst of the storm, I still had an opportunity to change an issue that affected my life most. And so years later, the same girl who lost her father on the streets of Newark will end up doing mentoring to other kids in the city who went through who went through similar situations, would end up volunteering at different organizations, because I knew that being a part of making my community better helped me better understand and work through what I went through.
How did you figure that out?
You know what, Steve? It didn't happen alone, right? When we talk about social change and we talk about particularly improving the lives of young people, none of it happens in a vacuum. And so my mother, my school communities, my incredible teachers, my church community, all these different individuals and institutions even, right, that stepped in and helped me not only see my own greatness, but also catalyze that to give back to the city that gave so much to me.
So how did the young girls who have been affected by violence in the city find you and She Wins?
So it's through a few things. A lot of it ends up being with our direct relationships with schools and organizations in the city. So we have guidance counselors, teachers, educators, social workers who know about the work we do. And they recommend and refer young girls to our programs. We enroll them in our summer leadership program. And then what happens is that once you're in She Wins, you never really leave, right? We have our model really is focusing on capturing our girls through 7th and 8th grade in middle school and supporting them through high school. So that way there's this long-term engagement and really a resilience-based focus that allows our girls to not only have this sort of consistent cohort that they can kind of stick with year to year, but also that they can come back to and mentor girls who are coming up after them. So what you guys just saw in the video were some of our high school scholars who started with us at 13 and 14 years old, right? Now in their junior years of high school, and they are actually mentoring, guiding, and helping facilitate service learning projects with the 9th and 8th graders.
You know, it's interesting at the Russell Berrie Awards for Making a Difference, there were so many other people being recognized in different fields. What was it like for you to be around so many extraordinary leaders who are, quote unquote, making a difference?
Yeah. So what I told you during our interview,
We did an interview there as well. Yeah.
was that our girls were actually there. We actually had 6 of our high school scholars there in the room, and so it was incredible. One, for me, you know, as an educator, as a nonprofit leader, to be surrounded by so many other
You were one
incredible.
of the youngest people there.
I was. So just to have that intergenerational element, right? It was really powerful to see so many other people who are committed to this work in that space, and for us to kind of, you know, brainstorm. We were networking. We were saying, look, we should work together. I know you're in Trenton.
You were schmoozing.
We were schmoozing. I mean, you got to schmooze to do the work, right?
You've learned networking.
You have to. But then also for our girls to see that, you know what, we can be here too. I tell them, in 10 years, 5 years, I want to be coming to your Russell Berrie Award. I'm going to be in the audience as you get it, because they are the change. You know, our girls give back more than 500 hours of service learning hours every year. The girls, Steve, right?
Hold on. The young women
girls.
who have been affected terribly by violence, they give back.
Absolutely.
Why? Hasn't enough happened to them that they should just take? Devil's advocate, you say?
You know what's interesting? I strongly believe that people who are most affected by issues are those most equipped to help find their solutions.
Like you.
Like me. And here's what's interesting too. Our girls, the majority of them have either lost a parent or sibling to violence, have been in a situation where they know someone, maybe in their school or in their community, who has been affected by violence. But then there's also this other contingent of our girls who don't necessarily share that story, but have this burning feeling that this is my city, this is my community, I love it, but I don't always feel safe here. What can I do to change it? And so what we do is empower all our girls, regardless of where they come from, their backgrounds and their stories, to see that these changes exist, but so do their solutions. And you're more than your pain, you're more than your trauma, right? You can work through that and develop an opportunity for you to not only achieve your goals for yourself, but also realize the goals and the vision you have for your city.
So I'm curious about this. There's a mentorship piece that I'm fascinated by. You teach mentoring?
Yes.
You teach mentorship?
Yeah, so it's almost like a 2-tiered approach, right? I teach mentorship to the girls as well as our community partners and our volunteers, and then they mentor the middle and high school girls underneath them.
All right, so here's the tricky question. As a student of leadership, as a teacher of leadership, I'm curious. It sounds like a cliche question, but I'm looking at you thinking, are great leaders born or made and taught to be this?
I think it's a both and.
Were you born to be a leader?
Absolutely.
But you didn't know it at 7 years of age when this horrific thing happened to you.
And you know, it's funny, I just was telling someone this the other day. I was born and raised in Newark, right? I ended up graduating high school from a high school actually right outside of Newark, and then college outside of Newark too. But when I tell you that there were people in my middle school, born and raised in Newark just like me, who were just as smart, equally as capable, but didn't always end up in the right situations, we're all born great. We're all born with talents. We're all born to be leaders. But you have to have the water, the sun, all these other elements to nurture those seeds.
That's right.
And so I think it's a both and. I think that we're all born with something unique to offer the world, but we also have to have this other space to cultivate it. And She Wins does that for our girls. And more importantly, Steve, they do that for themselves. And they do that for the rest of their city.
You're not just a great leader, you're a great communicator, and
Thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate
Proud
it.
of you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Newarkers unite, right? Brick City all day.
All day. Who else? All right, who's the most famous person from the city? I don't mean like Sarah Vaughan back in the day.
Right, I was saying that.
Who is it?
Whitney Houston.
It's Shaq. Oh, see?
How'd
It's
you miss
Houston.
Whitney?
I'm
What?
sorry.
I mean, Shaq
I'm
too,
sorry.
but
It's
like,
Shaq
come
too.
on.
I hear you. I apologize. Adubato, Mary Thomas, we could do this all day. Founder, She Wins. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you,
job.
Steve.
Check us out after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Russell Berrie Foundation. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Northward Center, New Jersey Resources, ADP, the Fidelco Group, and by Fedway Associates. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.